Mike? I'll take the old, I'll take the.
You want the old one?
Yeah, I'll keep track myself, thanks.
We got Romano back. Makes me very happy.
Now, why did you lose them for a while?
Because their courier left.
Yeah, I've got a newer.
Employment there about a
Just
year
if you
or
send me an
2
email,
months ago.
I'll send you.
At the same time, we got a new title clerk who'd been in the dealership in Oswego County where
This is, it's very close, I think I just cleaned it up a while
Well,
back.
send it to us because they'll send somebody
Yeah.
down here to pick it up.
I mean, it looks like the ones that I've done in the
And I was
past,
like,
but mine has
I
a
can't fight the
section
second back
of
right now,
law.
but I was courting the Carbone out of to get them in the door. So we
Oh, really?
got
Okay.
Carbone, and then about 2
Oh,
weeks
dear.
ago, Romano needed a favor. I said, I'll do a favor. I want your business back. So it's been good.
So is there any other dealerships in Syracuse for the family yet?
Well, we got Toyota. I haven't had the time to call the other few, but we'll get the rest of them. We just got Dodge. I still gotta get Kia of East Syracuse and East Syracuse Chevy. Those are the next two. And I'll get them. Picking up waste management tomorrow.
Nice. Wow.
That's a lot of
That's
money.
huge.
That's a lot of quick money.
Good evening, we have one hearing before the board tonight. A public hearing before the ZBA of Town Sullivan will be held on Thursday, October 8th, to consider the application of Philip Decker SBL 10.44-1-30.1 for a property located at 128 Jefferson Ave for an use variance than is permitted in the current zoning law of the Town of Sullivan for a storage shed bathhouse on a vacant lot. The above application is open for inspection at the Town of Sullivan office building during regular business hours. Persons wishing to appear at such a hearing may do so by person, attorney, or other representative. Mr. Decker, if you wanna come up here and tell us what you've done, and, you know, what you wanna do and what you've done. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
All I wanna do is have a place to store my lawnmower, and we'll join the association down there at the lake for my grandkids to be able to change. If they have to happen to go to the bathroom while we're down there, put a porta potty in there, have them go to the bathroom or whatever. I moved the building in, it came out of the town, I didn't realize that I really needed a building permit to do it. It was just move the whole thing in, and that's all I wanna do, just be able to use the
Yeah.
lake. I already have a house in the town,
Yeah,
so I don't need to build a house there, I just need a place to store a lawnmower and be able to use the lake.
okay. Does the board have any questions?
I don't think so.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this application? If so, stand, state your name and your concern, please.
Darlene Wilmer, and I'm against it.
Whereabout do you live?
I live on 114 Jefferson Ave.
Okay,
I believe that all of us need to follow the rules. Every time we put up a shed, anything my grandsons right now are having work done over on Onondaga Ave, every aspect has to be permitted. They came in, I thought somebody else had bought the land. I thought there were no owners. I thought either the Lopes from next door or the Butlers who had moved out, the new people that had bought that land, I thought they had bought it. Because everyone in the area has known for years that that place could not be built on because it's not big enough. And all of a sudden it was getting cleared off, and then I went down the street one day and there's half a house, and it's a little house. I have a picture of it.
yep, no, we've got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Cause the back side of it's not even, it's all closed off, it's black. You know, it's a little house, it's not a place for a shed. Got an air conditioner on the side. So, you know, I think it's just a way of circumventing the rules because they have known for years. I had friends that used to live right directly behind the property that had tried to buy it years ago. And, their name was Ralph and Michelle Farmer. And they were told, you know, that they weren't gonna sell. So everybody's known in that area that the house was sitting on land that could not be built on. and yet they just went down there, they brought, I mean, I understand they're out their money and all that, but if we all got, there's little properties all over the place that don't have any buildings on them, and if we allow this one and allow these people to circumvent the rules, then it's gonna start happening, and it's gonna be like living in a city with all these little tiny houses all over the place. And I'm not for that. That's why I moved out here in the first place.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak for or against this? Please state your name and your address, please.
Jeff Lopes, I live at 132 Jefferson Ave, the property that borders it right next door. I don't honestly see the big issue. It does look like a tiny house, but in effect, it was just a sunroom on a camper that he got a deal on it was sold on Craigslist, wasn't it, as a shed.
Sure.
And the probably, people did have a chance, with all due respect, the people that we talked about, Ralph Shell did have a chance to buy it. They just couldn't reach an agreement with Phil's aunt, and I had the same opportunity. Like I said, I'm the one that looks at it every day. It doesn't seem to bother me, because before, I've been mowing it off and on for years, and every year I cleared a little bit more. And because I didn't want to encroach too much, and since looking, I just cleaned it up a little bit better. And part of the reason I moved out here is because I grew up in the city of Syracuse, where you had to have a permit for everything you did. You had no freedoms. I thought it was one of the nice things here, that we had a little bit of wiggle room. And I just don't see what the big issue is. If it's a matter of the taxes, then you just have to reassess it. All it is. That's about all I gotta say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak for or against?
My name is Ray Carney. I at 645 Route 31, the old Brown Greens Golf Course. The property actually used to belong to my business partner and PJ's uncle before he passed away. I went down and helped PJ clean it up, making the property look nicer, better than what it was. And I can tell you what I went through when I was trying to do what I needed to do at Brown Greens to make that into my home and business. I really got put through the ringer for about 9 months. And I've done everything I've said I was gonna do as far as cleaning it up, and I just think if people stick to what they say they're gonna do, if the town needs to take some money to make sure that that gets done, to make sure he puts it back on the back of the house, his plan was to do that anyhow, but the stop work order permit stopped him from doing anything until he got through this meeting, so. Just the property looks nicer today than it did before.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I don't have a for or against, but I have a question.
Certainly.
The whole thing here is because he didn't get a permit first, right?
No,
No, it's because there's no house on it?
correct.
So basically, okay, then I answer my
Yeah,
own
the
question.
town has a law, you can't have an accessory building on
Right,
a
okay,
piece of property.
So then that necessitates the requirement for a use variance versus an area variance. So with a use variance, there's a legal standard that the applicant has to satisfy, and the burden is on the applicant to get that. So the town's established a set of laws, whether we like them or not is irrelevant. I don't like 55 miles an hour, but I have to drive that. So now the question is, can you establish an accessory structure on this standalone lot without a primary structure with it? The answer is no, you can't, unless this board grants you a use variance, and then you have to meet the legal standard that the state of New York created, not this board. State of New York has a uniform legal test that you have to meet to get a use variance. And then the board will have to wrestle with that later on tonight. They have to weigh that. One of the biggest issues is gonna be self-created hardship. By New York state law and case law established based on New York state law, if you encounter a situation where there's a self-created hardship, where the applicant comes to the property with a law in place and then wants to do something that's not allowed on the site, that's known as a self-created hardship. And the courts have said, and the statute says, that's an automatic denial. You can't have a self-created hardship for a use variance and still proceed on to get what you want. Area variance is different. That's just one of the balancing factors that you use. So the board will have to wrestle with that aspect of this legal test that they have to go through later on tonight. as a use variance, not because somebody thinks it's not gonna look good, or somebody took care of the property, or who owned it, or who's gonna pay taxes. That has nothing to do with a use variance. It's the balance, or excuse me, it's the test about whether this is a self-created hardship, whether there's been dollars and cents proof that there's no other possible allowable use for that vacant lot, what have you. And there's a few other factors that we're going to go through step by step later on tonight. And that'll give us our answer.
I have a question. Like this gentleman said he knew all the rules and regulations. I live on the lake, so I know what we have to go through too. Now, if he knew all these rules and regulations, why didn't he tell him he needed a permit to put this so-called shed? Has anybody been down to see this shed? It's on cinder blocks.
We have pictures of it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, everything that we were gonna do with it stopped when they told us to, that sounds,
Yeah,
not to be.
right, cause you were presented with a stop order until you got a permit. Yep, we understand that.
Now, are children just gonna come there to use this little house to go down to the lake, or are we gonna have parties and everything after a while?
I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old grandson. My thought is to bring them to the lake. We've done it a few times this summer. And I have an older son that brought his camper down there and stayed 2 nights, I think, or 1 night, and he left. Was there any big parties this summer?
No, not yet, but it's not saying it's not gonna happen.
That's not what I'm doing at my age, or I'm gonna allow it to happen on property that I own. I'm a New York State court officer, so that's part of my
I
job.
work for the city
is-
of
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, it's
No.
not.
I don't know if we need to get into whether there will be or won't be parties in the future. It's something nobody will know. Is there any other comments before I close the public hearing?
I'm only wondering if, since they cleared off the property without getting the permits and got.
Well, he could clear the
Yeah,
property.
I know, he could clear that off by bringing in the building. I mean, what's the next? Are they gonna put in water? Are they gonna put in a sewer without telling anybody or asking permission on that?
Yep, no,
That's what I'm curious about.
a lot will depend on what we decide here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. This board is gonna discuss this in a few minutes, and you're more than welcome to stay around and hear our discussion, and we probably will make a decision, though we have 60 days to make a decision, so you're more than welcome to stay.
Thank you.
The planning board did provide.
Yes, I was gonna read that. Okay, so we got a notice from the planning board are supposed to review any of the cases we have, and this is from the planning board. This applicant seeks a use variance in order to locate a 10.5 by 22 accessory building on a .23 acre lot, vacant lot. The town law does not allow accessory buildings without a principal residence on a lot. Allowing accessory structures without a residential structure has a negative town-wide effect. Accessory buildings on undeveloped lots have a greater tendency to become unsightly storage units for materials not associated with the site, attracts clutter, fall into disrepair, and in some cases become temporary or permanent housing outside the acceptable health and safety standards. The planning board strongly recommends to this board that you urge that this use variance be denied. Okay, Mike, so as Mr. Lang spoke earlier, we have some criteria, some questions we have to go down to see, if this is something that we can allow or not allow. So we have a series of questions we're gonna work through it in a moment.
Okay. We will be lead agency. It's a type 2. The type 2. and I would say a negative declaration.
Why don't you, once it's type 2, you're done.
Yep.
I understand the shed, I could.
First question to consider on the legal test. Can the owner realize a reasonable return on the property?
Let me just say this, Michael.
Yeah.
There's no proof provided.
Yeah,
by the
nothing, no evidence was presented to the contrary. So I would say, yes, the owner can realize a reasonable return on the property. And then in the note said, no evidence presented to the contrary.
Okay,
Comfortable with that, Cliff? Brian? Is the alleged hardship relating to the property unique? It was mentioned that there are several other properties, and we've seen other properties along those streets that are vacant properties without any buildings. So I would say it's not unique to this property.
right, there are many undersized lots down there that aren't buildable.
So I said, many undersized lots which are smaller than minimum buildable lot size with no structures exist in the area. Will the requested use variance, if granted, alter the essential character of the neighborhood? I would say yes.
Yes. I would agree.
I said yes. I said it opens the door for more future secondary structures on vacant lots in residential neighborhoods. Is the alleged hardship self-created? Say yes.
Yes.
Laws were in effect at the time the property was acquired?
Sounds good.
The ZBA, after reviewing the 4 factors above, finds that the applicant has failed to prove unnecessary hardship through the application of the 4-part test as required by Town Law Section 276B2 and B1 through 4, and therefore the use variance requested is denied.
So you're making that as a motion?
Yeah.
Do we have a second? A second. Any further discussion?
So in this case, a yes vote denies the variance, just so we're clear.
Yes.
Yes
vote.
means you're not gonna grant the variance, cause the motion is to deny.
I can't speak for everybody on the board, but I will say, looking at the lot size and the lot coverage, it is undersized as a building lot at roughly 10,000 square feet, and the minimum building lot size is 12,000. I personally would be more inclined to consider an area variance that would allow you to build a primary structure as a camp than to allow something that would be considered a secondary structure to be erected at that site. for a whole host of reasons. And it's not anything about who you are or how you plan to use it, Mr. Decker, but when we look at this, so we're bound by the state laws anyways. The state laws, there's no way that we could approve this with what was discussed tonight, and have it hold up in court. And part of our responsibility is to make decisions that would hold up if they were challenged by one of the other neighbors, that it would hold up in a court. And if we granted it tonight, it wouldn't. But the other problem beyond that is at some point somebody else will own that lot, or somebody who owns a different lot will come in and ask for the same thing to be able to build a shed. And what happens when that takes place is somebody puts up a shed and it becomes the crap catcher for everything they don't want at their house. And when that happens in a residential area, it has a very detrimental effect on the property values of everybody around them. And that's why we have this, you said you moved out here so you wouldn't have the zoning law, but the reason we have the zoning law at the level that we do is so that it doesn't adversely affect the value of properties in the neighborhood surrounding them. So that's why we have to make the decision that we make tonight.
You know, I would like to sort of reiterate what Mike said. I mean, I sympathize with you. I mean, I think the lot looks better than it did a few years ago. You know, you cleaned it up and that's really great. Going back to what Mike said, I have some property and I have one of these lots that have a shed on it. The previous owner, he used to mow around it and kept everything in the shed and it was nice. He sold it 2 years ago. Now there's an abandoned car against it. The weeds are growing up. All the stuff that didn't fit into the shed. So
when you cite the person.
yeah, and the town doesn't want to get into that. You know, we can't use all our resources, you know, chasing people down. And again, what Mike said, we're setting a precedence. If we allow this, then everybody down on the lake, every other lot will have a shed on it.
That's already happened. It's all over the town.
So you need to call for a
So I
vote
got it.
on the motion.
Larry?
Yeah, my name's Larry Bob, I'm a code enforcement officer for the town. One of the things I want the board to be aware of, he did mention in his dissertation that he occasionally brought a trailer onto the site. Under our local law, trailers are not allowed on any residential or vacant parcel in the town outside of a trailer park. So I would just like to make that as a note, because what I'm seeing now with the economy and people living elsewhere, I've got 8 trailers sitting on vacant lots in this town, and I gotta go to the planning board and try to find a town law to institute or enforce to get these people to move these off these properties.
Okay.
But that's what's happening in our town. We're getting more and more trailers on vacant lots.
All right, so the public hearing was closed and I'll call for a vote. So all in favor of denying the application signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, unanimous.
That's it? Minutes from last week.
Okay, the board, if you haven't looked at the minutes from last month's meeting, please take a look at it, and if there's someone that would
I'll
like
make a
to-
motion to approve the minutes, already read them.
Okay,
And I second that, I already read them too.
all right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. If all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. Do we have anything on the agenda for next month?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for advice of counsel.
But it has nothing to do with this, just gotta.
No,
Right.
this is settled, we already
Yeah,
voted on
this
it.
is-
To see, the board's gonna seek legal advice from me on legal questions that they have.
Fair enough.
I signed it.
Let's see your pen for a second.
Sometimes you need a gavel.
My desk. I'm gonna do that. Very dangerous. bull,
moved them.
Feel like-
pit bull mix.
My goodness,
Yeah.
what home is